Okay, I'll call the special workshop for budgetary session to order at 1:36. We have the agenda before us. As introduction, I just have a couple comments. This is going to be a very interesting year. As you go through this document, we're facing some very painful cuts, reduction in funding, possibly from the state, several different aspects. I would ask that we all realize this situation is somewhat out of our hands, but this pain is going to be felt in a great many aspects of county government, and with that, I'll ask for roll call and then turn it over to the CEO.
Supervisor Delbar.
Here.
Supervisor Pinches.
Here.
Supervisor Smith. Here. Supervisor Colfax.
Here.
Chair Wattenberger.
Here. Supervisor Delbar, do you have a comment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I will apologize in advance, but just after 2 o'clock, I'll be stepping out for a few minutes for a very quick doctor's appointment. It's the only time I could get this week, so I apologize for having to do that, but I will return as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Supervisor. To the CEO's office.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll start off with a few opening remarks as per our schedule here, and then be followed. I'll take a lengthy break here while the staff presents some PowerPoint presentation and some analysis of where we are through the second quarter of this year. In the context of what we're talking about here today, there are really four categories, which I'll call them, and in the last category, which is a challenge area, there'll be some subcategories. But really what is affecting what we're talking about here today, the first item really has to do with our slowing economy. Items having to do with the housing crunch, the mortgage crunch, what's going on, the overall poor state of both our U.S. and our California economy. One of the interesting things I always find about California in particular is that most of the time California doesn't know exactly what's happening with their revenue stream until people actually start paying their taxes. So many times when you see the difference between what the governor's forecasting and it either goes up or down, has to do with what people are actually paying for in their taxes. So a lot of times, because of the complicated structure we have in this country, decisions are made at the last minute, and those numbers change constantly. That contributes to item 2, which is the state's current spending crisis. And I think those of us that have been around for a long time, I don't believe the state ever did solve their fiscal crisis from a number of years ago. What they did was take the benefit of a number of one-time revenue enhancements, and the state is, like many people in our lives who have really been putting things on the credit card, and eventually the credit card bills are coming due, which is what's happening here. All of that turns and has an impact back on the county, and that comes back in a reduced cash flow to us from the state. But one of our challenges that we've highlighted here several times, you'll hear us talk about it over and over again, is about the county's debt. And part of what we need to do is, because of prior commitments that have been made, we need to get back on track on repaying some of our existing debts too, and putting our own house in order. Under the final category, which I'll call our challenges for next year, I start off with, of course, one of the most significant issues has been having to do with our highest component of our county budget, really is our employee salaries. Now, those of you that might remember that through our MOU process, we do have what's called a market adjustment that's scheduled to occur in July of 2008 per those contracts. Worst case scenario is that market adjustment could adjust many county positions by 3.5%. In addition to that, there is a COLA that will be due in January of 2009. So you have the potential there, worst case scenario, up to 7% increase in our employee costs next year if all of those costs come in as anticipated. I also, though, when I do want to highlight when I make those statements, because it's a factor that's part of our MOUs that we know we have to deal with, but it was a necessary component of, I think, some of the choices the county made. If you look around at some of the critical positions that we have and the difficulty that we have filling those positions, we were extremely out of market as far as what our salary comparables are. We're doing better now that we've had these increases, and we'll do better with those increases next year. But we need to be competitive in the marketplace. So this is just a challenge that we have that we know we'll have to accommodate in our overall budget process. Last year, the county was generous in giving away some funding to outside agencies. There may not be funding available based on what's happening with us at the state level, and also our own local resources to contribute toward outside agencies this year. A third little subset is, gosh, I really hate to use the George Bush term, but it's the area that I call mission critical. And there are a number of choices that we need to continue to fund, and in some areas put forward some additional funding over and above this current year that we're in right now to complete some projects that we're moving forward with. So I want you to be aware it's not that we're sending out mixed messages from our office. It's just that there are a number of projects that we really need to move forward with more aggressively to put things in place for us. So you may see us telling you we want to cut back in some areas, but looking for additional funding in some other areas, and that's why, because those are what we view as critical components for our own infrastructure. The final part of this overall budget process you're looking at is fees, and obviously with every time our employees get a raise, we're no different than any private business that's out there that typically gets impacted by an increase in federal prevailing wage or other market conditions. As our costs go up, our fees need to go up. And so we have made fees now, and we'll talk about it tomorrow, the master fee schedule. They are now part of our budget process. But we have to anticipate as we do look at our fees and what our costs are going to be for next year as we start this process. So those are just some opening remarks for you. I think the final thing I'll tell you is that the legislature concluded a number of items on their schedule last week for the fiscal crisis, but that pretty much addresses issues for the current year.